Misinformation, fanatism, and lack of representation are the main contributors to the divisional gap in politics that affects our democracy.
In the last decade, political divisions are more drastic than ever. It's because communication is not based on the common areas, but it's based in those that make us different.
Problems arise when disagreements become a non productive debate. So, at which point in the distance of political spectrums you believe is when we reach a point that hurts democracy?
When we no longer talk about public politics, it now works as if I am in my team, for better or worse, agreeing or not with the candidate on both sides.
The extremes are nurtured by this division and threaten to destroy friendships and families. They disrupt legislative function and weaken the political system, all due to misinformation.
Any information that's manipulated allows the division simply because it's nothing more powerful than causing fear. Many people say that if Trump is reelected, this country is over, and I don't think so. Others say that if Biden is reelected, we'll become socialists. Those are extreme points of views, and that affect the voter that may not understand the system.
If Democrats keep saying that Republicans are to blame for, or Republicans keep saying no, it's not our fault, then nothing will get done. They have to conclude that there are extremes within the organization and do something about it.
Our political experts trust that the phenomenon of polarization is not yet irreversible. Both sides can control the distance and function together through mutual respect, empathy, and education.
Hear each other out. Let's agree to be in disagreement.
But voting also influences the representation every social group receives. Civic participation counts as well.
If we're changing the system in a way that represents the will of the people, it's going to be by voting. But when the votes don't even get to 50%, that can be very harmful.
Our experts coincide that the future promises to stay away from extremes and civil division, only if our political representation unites.
This is how we have to keep the balance of the nation or the county. They all have to be represented.
For NTTV News, Rachel Cedeño.
Once again, welcome back to NTTV's live coverage of Your Decision 2020. Once again, I am here with Matthew Eshbough-Soha and Gabe Ignatow. Once again, how are you doing tonight, gentlemen?
Great, thank you.
Good, how's it going?
All right, so let's just go ahead and jump right in. Third time's a charm. Is the division in this country as bad as it seems? What is y'all's opinion on this?
Well, you can count me either a skeptic or an optimist. I think a lot of times we look at the current moment and think it's most important. So tonight, if you watch the news, it's the most important election ever. But if we go back to 2016, it was the most important election ever. I think when we have some historical context and we think about real division in this country, we go back to the election of 1860, where we are on the precipice of the Civil War. So although we have a lot of division and a lot of anger, we're certainly not at that point, and I'm optimistic that we'll get through tonight. We'll have a peaceful transition or a peaceful re-election, and we'll remember this as a difficult time, but certainly one that's not as bad as we've experienced.
And
Yeah, I agree with.
yes, you
I'm
as
sorry.
well. Sorry, no, you as well, Gabe. What is your opinion on this?
Oh, I agree with Dr. Eshbough-Soha. I mean, this country has always been divided. It's a very large nation. We have lots of divisions in terms of region, political ideology, religion, culture, and other factors. But I do think there's a shift this time where you have an elected populist leader for the first time in many decades, I would say. And there's a shift and a kind of realignment in politics. And it's not the kind of right versus left that many of us grew up with. It's a different alignment, and we'll see. I think this is a referendum on that shift, and we'll see where it goes from here.
And what do you think caused this shift from what your generation grew up with to what my generation is currently growing up with, this shift from the difference in left and right?
I see it as rooted in class and in higher education. So we have more and more people going to college, and as you have that situation, we have to pay attention to the people who don't finish college, and becomes kind of more obvious. I mean, this is just one factor, but there's a greater contrast, and I think a little bit more stigma associated with not going to college and feeling you're out of the kind of elite in this country. And that's a very difficult conflict to resolve, and something we're all going to have to manage and work through.
Okay, and moving on, doing a little bit of a turn, do you think this record massive voter turnout has something to do with a change in the psyche of American people?
Well, I think what this demonstrates is that people are finally becoming concerned about their representation and their democracy. I mean, we saw a record turnout in 2018 during that midterm election, and we're seeing a trajectory. It seems that people are more receptive to messages of the importance of voting. We're seeing it from celebrities and from NBA greats currently playing, the NFL, a lot of outreach to try to encourage people to vote. And I think people realize that even though one's vote may not make the final determination of what their future may look like, it's extremely important, and I'm pleased that people are taking it seriously.
And Dr.
I would just
Ignatow,
add that.
sorry, do you have anything to add to that?
I would just add that, in past elections, we've heard a lot of talk about how the two candidates were not all that different and people were less interested in voting. And this time around, I think there's a very clear contrast. It's very difficult to kind of straddle the fence. Everyone has an opinion about Donald Trump. His face has been in the news, every website, every newspaper, every day for years. So everyone has an opinion about him. He's a very divisive figure. And I think we see that manifesting itself in high voter turnout.
And this question is specifically for you, Gabe. The way there seems to be a change in less respect for both gender and racial status, how harmful is that to our country? It seems as if it's just okay to make fun of people for these things. How harmful is that in the political scheme of things, and what caused that?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's true. It's a hard thing to quantify. It's certainly not my area of expertise, but identity politics, racial and gender politics have certainly been kind of on the table in this this go-round in this election, and it's a product of lots of different things: generational change, demographic change in the United States. We're becoming more diverse, socioeconomic class differences, and then a very divisive presidential candidate this time around, and in 2016 in the form of Donald Trump, who speaks in a way that we're not used to hearing from politicians, maybe in a way that many people would see as crass or vulgar or just direct and honest, depending on your point of view. But he's someone who is very unpolitically correct and is saying things that we are absolutely not used to hearing from national politicians.
Okay, and final question. What is some observations that either of you have made about this election as a whole?
Well, they got off to a rough start, certainly with the coronavirus and the first presidential debate. But I think we've seen both candidates step out and try to communicate a message to their supporters. I think we've had a very busy last week. Certainly Donald Trump has targeted a number of key states. And I think if Trump is able to prevail tonight, I think it will be those last ditch efforts this past week to motivate his supporters. But I think at the end of the night, we're looking at high record turnout. We're looking at people participating in the process, and that's a very positive thing.
All right, and Gabe, final observations very quickly.
Well, I would just add that it seems that a relatively large number of people are personalizing this election to a degree that is different from what we've seen in the past. And I think many people are concerned at this level of kind of politicization of everyday life and people's relationships. And, we're all concerned, many people are concerned about what will happen post-election, and will it be a smooth transition of power, however it goes.
All right, thank you both, gentlemen, so much for joining us. We'll check back in with you later.